The western U.S. is creeping towards a possible water shortage.
The aquifers are going to dry up, and we have to address that.
Arizona is a place where life not only survives, but thrives in the sun-baked desert. Each year, more people arrive, drawn by open skies, warm winters, and a sense of possibility. But beneath that growth, a fragile reality is taking shape. The Colorado River is shrinking, and its reservoirs fall lower each year. Arizona has no new rivers waiting to be found. Every drop is already claimed, yet demand continues to rise. Experts warn that by 2050, Phoenix will be almost unlivable. Extreme heat and a lack of water may drive people away from the valley. At the same time, a quieter battle is unfolding. Foreign governments, hedge funds, and large farms are buying Arizona land. They plant thirsty crops and pump water from deep underground. The harvest leaves the state, and the water leaves with it. Profit comes quickly, but the loss is permanent in a land where water is life. In this video, we will uncover who truly controls Arizona's land and reveal who profits by turning the state's most precious resources into cash. But before we start, here's a little question to entertain you. What is the earliest known place in Arizona where people lived 5,000 years ago? A. Monument Valley. B. Canyon de Chelly. C. Petrified Forest. D. Montezuma Castle. Share your opinion in the comments and patiently watch this video till the end to find out the truth. Chinese footprint. China is home to more than 1.4 billion people, making it the most populous nation on Earth. Managing the needs of such a vast population means the country constantly faces shortages of critical resources. Some shortages come and go, like food or energy during certain years. Others, like the shortage of fresh water, are structural and far more difficult to solve. In recent decades, China's rapid industrial growth has put immense pressure on its rivers, lakes, and underground reserves. Large manufacturing hubs consume huge amounts of water every day, while agriculture in the north draws heavily from aquifers that have been in decline for decades. When a nation with significant financial resources faces such a challenge, one strategy is to look beyond its borders. Land in other countries can offer more than space for crops. It can provide access to water rights that are far more valuable than the soil itself. For China, the United States has become one of those targets. American farmland is rich in both productivity and the water that sustains it. Some purchases are large and public, while others are small and barely noticed outside the local community. In recent years, foreign investment has extended into Arizona. Chinese buyers purchased a single parcel of farmland in Chandler. That property covers just 322 acres. Earlier reports exaggerated and cited nearly 9,900 acres. Those figures were corrected after scrutiny. In truth, the land in Chandler is the only piece actually owned by Chinese entities. Most of the other parcels attributed to China were misassigned and belonged to companies from Canada, Germany, Singapore, and Malaysia. Those errors inflated concern about Chinese expansion in Arizona. Still, the presence of that one parcel raised alarms. Lawmakers responded by drafting Senate Bill 1109. The bill would have barred Chinese entities from owning more than 30% interest in Arizona land. It targeted areas near military facilities and critical infrastructure, but the governor vetoed it. She argued the measure lacked real enforcement and might be unconstitutional. She also said it failed to directly protect national security. After vetoing the bill, she introduced a broader version. Her version bans land ownership by any foreign adversary nation. That includes China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. The new measure has clearer criteria and narrower loopholes. It has better chances of passing into law. How long have you lived in Arizona? Did you know that China bought land here, and what is your opinion on it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And now, let's dive in. Red land grab. China's purchase of farmland in Arizona is only a small part of a much larger story. Across the United States, Chinese investors have quietly built up vast holdings of land. In total, they control hundreds of thousands of acres spread over multiple states. To a local seller, these deals look like an easy way to earn cash. Yet no amount of money can bring back a river once its flow is gone. Owning the land also means controlling the water tied to it. And that is the real prize. In Texas, Chinese ownership stretches into the hundreds of thousands of acres. Much of this land is productive farmland with direct access to irrigation water. In North Carolina and Missouri, tens of thousands of acres are under Chinese control, often in regions with strong farming traditions. In Utah and Florida, smaller but still significant parcels have been purchased, some close to key infrastructure. While each sale may appear routine, together they form a strategic pattern that cannot be ignored. Local communities in these states are already seeing the effects. Farmers find it harder to compete when buyers arrive with deep pockets and little need for immediate returns. Land prices rise, making it difficult for younger generations to stay in agriculture. In some areas, new owners pump more groundwater than the land can naturally replenish. This drops the water table, leaving nearby wells struggling or dry. For rural communities that depend on shared aquifers, this is not just an inconvenience, it is a direct threat to survival. State governments have started to push back. Texas, for example, has debated and in some cases passed restrictions on foreign ownership near military bases and water infrastructure. Missouri has set limits on how much farmland foreign entities can hold. North Carolina and Florida have also considered tighter rules to protect local resources. These measures show that the concern is not just about land, but about the control of resources linked to that land. For Arizona, the warning signs are clear. If large-scale purchases begin here, the effects could mirror those in other states. Prices for farmland could rise beyond the reach of local families. Water rights could be transferred out of the community's control. Groundwater pumping could intensify, stressing already limited supplies. Over time, the very resources that make farming possible could be redirected to serve distant markets or foreign needs. Are you from Arizona? Do you think Arizona should follow other states and restrict foreign ownership of farmland? Share your opinion in the comments. Our team needs your help. Subscribe to our channel to help more people learn the truth about current events. And now, we move on. Native land guardians. We have just talked about how foreign investors buy up American land. Yet the largest single block of land in Arizona is not in foreign hands at all. It belongs to the native nations who have lived here for centuries. Across the state, there are 22 federally recognized tribes. Together, they control more than 1/4 of Arizona's total area. The largest of them is the Navajo Nation, a territory that extends into Utah and New Mexico and covers an area larger than several U.S. states. These lands are not governed by state law, in the same way as other parts of Arizona. Each tribe has its own system of government, its own courts, and its own approach to land and resource management. On paper, that control should mean security. In practice, the picture is more complicated. Land without reliable access to water is land under constant pressure. For the Navajo Nation, water has been both a right and a point of struggle. Much of their territory is in a region where rivers are small and rainfall is scarce. Decades of diversion projects have reduced flows, while aquifers are slow to recharge. Many communities depend on wells or hauled water for daily needs. In recent years, the Navajo Nation went to court seeking recognition of their water rights from the Colorado River. The case reached the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled that while the tribe has legal rights to water, the federal government is not obligated to build the infrastructure needed to deliver it. This means the right exists in law, but remains unreachable in practice. Without pipelines, pumping stations, and treatment facilities, those rights are little more than words on paper. Meanwhile, beyond reservation boundaries, vast irrigation systems move water to feed crops grown for distant markets. In parts of Arizona, foreign-owned farms pump groundwater to grow alfalfa that will be shipped overseas. These operations have the capital to drill deeper and operate larger systems, ensuring their fields stay green even as local streams and wells run dry. For native nations, watching rivers shrink while neighboring fields remain lush is a painful reminder of the imbalance in how resources are managed. The contrast is stark. On one side are communities that have lived on this land for generations, still waiting for the infrastructure that would make their water rights real. On the other are outside investors with the means to extract and export water in vast quantities. Foreign companies can turn Arizona's most limited resource into a private commodity, while native nations are left to work around shortages and delayed promises. Do you think Arizona should do more to ensure that the state's original inhabitants have access to the water? Share your view in the comments. Our team needs your help. Subscribe to our channel to help more people learn the truth about current events. And now we move on. Desert drainers. In parts of Arizona's desert valleys, wells pump thousands of gallons a day to irrigate bright green fields of alfalfa. These fields are not for Arizona's own cattle industry. They belong to companies tied to the United Arab Emirates, with the crop destined for the Persian Gulf. One of the most visible is Al Dara, a major Emirati agribusiness with farmland in Arizona. In 2006, the UAE government banned domestic alfalfa farming to reduce water consumption. This ban turned the UAE into a major importer of U.S. alfalfa to meet its feed need. The UAE acted because water scarcity at home is extreme. The country's climate is one of the driest on Earth. Rainfall is rare, and almost all drinking water comes from costly desalination plants. Growing alfalfa there would quickly deplete already fragile aquifers. By banning its cultivation, the UAE protected its reserves. Meanwhile, Arizona offers several advantages for this kind of operation. There is fertile soil in certain valleys, a warm climate that allows multiple harvests each year, and groundwater that can be accessed with large pumps. In much of rural Arizona, groundwater extraction is not strictly regulated. Landowners can legally pump as much as they want, regardless of the long-term impact on the aquifer. For a foreign company, this is a perfect scenario. Low restrictions, high yields, and no need to bear the environmental cost at home. Alfalfa is one of the most water-intensive crops in agriculture, using far more per acre than many staple foods. To keep it alive in Arizona's desert, wells reach hundreds of feet into aquifers that took centuries to fill. Once this water is removed, it will not return in any meaningful way during our lifetime. Local communities near these farms have noticed wells producing less water or going dry altogether. This is especially alarming for households and small farms that rely on shallow wells and cannot afford deeper drilling. The export locks in the loss. Once the alfalfa is cut, baled, and shipped overseas, the water used to grow it is gone from Arizona forever. The profits from these farms go mainly to foreign operators and a small number of landowners, while the costs are spread across the community. Lower groundwater levels can lead to sinking land, damaged infrastructure, and the loss of natural springs. Wildlife and native plants that depend on groundwater also suffer as the water table falls. Arizona has been talking about its water crisis for many years. It is now 2025, and the state still allows foreign companies to use its water to grow crops banned in their own countries. While the UAE acted nearly 2 decades ago to protect its own resources, Arizona continues to sell access to its aquifers without meaningful limits. We are watching our own reserves shrink while helping other nations secure their food supply. What should Arizona do to address its water crisis? Share your ideas in the comments. Share your opinion in the comments. Now please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small action, but it helps YouTube's algorithm promote our videos to a wider audience. Water flip. In the desert, water is supposed to be life. In Arizona, it has become a chip on the table, traded for profit like any other asset. In a state where every drop should be guarded, there are deals that treat water as a commodity to be moved, sold, and flipped. Sometimes the land is just the packaging, and the real prize is what lies beneath it. One of the clearest examples is the case of Greenstone Resource Partners. This investment group purchased a large farm near the Colorado River in western Arizona. The farm came with valuable rights to use river water for irrigation. Instead of continuing to grow crops, Greenstone shut down most of the agricultural operations. The company then negotiated a deal to sell the water rights to the fast-growing suburb of Queen Creek, hundreds of miles away in central Arizona. The sale brought them millions of dollars in profit, reportedly around $14 million more than they had paid for the land. On paper, it was a legal transaction. Under Arizona law, certain types of water rights can be transferred to new owners if state regulators approve. In practice, the deal shifted a resource from a rural farming community to a rapidly expanding metro area. For people in La Paz County, where the farm was located, the loss was immediate. The fields went dry, farm jobs disappeared, and the water that once supported local agriculture began flowing toward suburban lawns and golf courses. Local officials and residents protested the sale. They argued that the water belonged to the region's future, not to investors seeking a quick return. Some warned that allowing this type of trade would open the door for more outside buyers to scoop up farmland just to resell the water. Farmers worried that it would drive up land prices, making it harder for working producers to compete with well-financed speculators. Supporters of the sale claimed that cities like Queen Creek need secure water supplies to handle population growth. They saw the deal as a way to put the water to better use in urban development. Critics countered that this reasoning ignores the long-term damage to rural economies and ecosystems. Once water leaves an agricultural basin, it rarely comes back. Cropland dries out, aquifers are drawn down, and the local community loses a piece of its economic base. The Greenstone case revealed how thin the line is between land ownership and water control in Arizona. It showed that in a desert state, whoever buys the land can, in some cases, take the water with them. This creates an incentive for investors to treat farmland like a water bank. It also raises questions about how many such deals a region can sustain before the balance tips irreversibly toward depletion. What should Arizona do to prevent its water from becoming just another asset for speculation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Share this video on X and Facebook to help us grow. Every share counts. Titan Missile Museum. During the Cold War, Arizona prepared for a nuclear strike. Today, some say the state faces a slower but equally dangerous battle for its future. Back then, the enemy was another superpower. Now the threats are more complex and closer to home. In the early 1960s, southern Arizona became part of one of the most powerful deterrent forces the United States ever built. Hidden beneath the desert floor were 18 Titan II missile silos, each capable of launching a nuclear warhead across the globe in about 30 minutes. These missiles were on constant alert, with crews working day and night to ensure they could respond instantly if the order came. Their mission was clear. If the nation was threatened, they would launch without hesitation. The Titan II was the largest intercontinental ballistic missile ever deployed by the United States. Today, only one of those silos remains intact. The Titan Missile Museum, located just south of Tucson, is the only publicly accessible ICBM site in the United States. Visitors can descend into the original control center, stand at the consoles where missile crews once sat, and see the preserved Titan II in its launch tube. The museum experience is designed to make history tangible. Guided tours take you through the same blast doors and hardened hallways once used by missile crews. You can watch a simulated launch sequence complete with authentic sounds and flashing indicators. The preserved missile, lying silent in its silo, gives a real sense of the scale and power that was once hidden beneath Arizona's desert. Exhibits explain the technology of the Titan II system, the daily life of the crew, and the broader geopolitical tensions of the Cold War. Artifacts range from personal items used by service members to the massive tools required for missile maintenance. Outside, visitors can see support vehicles, radar systems, and even a training missile transport. For those who want a deeper experience, special tours allow access to rarely seen areas, including the crew quarters and the secondary control rooms. School groups and researchers come here to learn not only about weapons, but also about the human element of deterrence. The museum also hosts events and educational programs that connect the Cold War era to present-day discussions about global security. Walking through the Titan Missile Museum is like stepping into another era, yet it is also a reminder that the challenges of national defense evolve rather than disappear. The technology is vintage, the equipment heavy and mechanical, yet the sense of vigilance still lingers in the air. Arizona once stood on the front line of a global conflict, not with armies or borders, but with silent weapons hidden beneath its soil. If Arizona faced a major crisis today, do you think its people are as prepared as they were during the Cold War? Share your opinion in comments. Vanishing wonders. The water crisis in Arizona is not a distant threat. It is already here, and it is reshaping some of the state's most iconic places. In 2024, one of the most famous destinations in the country, the Grand Canyon, had to limit overnight stays on its north rim. The reason was not a fire, a storm, or a lack of tourists. It was a broken water pipeline. The Trans-Canyon Water Line, which supplies all potable water to both rims of the park, suffered another in a long series of failures. Without that water, hotels and other facilities could not operate as normal. For visitors, it was a sudden reminder that even world-famous landmarks depend on fragile infrastructure and limited resources. Grand Falls, known as the Chocolate Falls of Arizona, tells a similar story in a different way. This waterfall on the Little Colorado River was once a seasonal spectacle, drawing crowds during spring snowmelt and after monsoon rains. In recent years, those flows have slowed to a trickle or stopped entirely. By 2023, the site was effectively closed to visitors, not because it was unsafe in the traditional sense, but because there was simply no water to see. Without snow in the mountains and rain in the desert, the falls became a dry cliff. The beauty that depended on seasonal abundance vanished in silence. Some places have been lost for longer. The Painted Rock Reservoir in Pinal County was built to store water and help control floods. It once held enough to support recreation, wildlife, and nearby farms. Over the decades, though, sediment from upstream farms filled the reservoir, and the water that remained became polluted with pesticides like DDT. By 2009, it was no longer safe for public use. Today it sits mostly dry, closed to recreation, and posted with warning signs. What was intended to be a symbol of control over water has become a monument to how quickly that control can slip away. These are not isolated incidents. They are warning signs. If major attractions like the Grand Canyon can have their operations disrupted, if beloved natural wonders like Grand Falls can disappear from sight, and if once promising reservoirs like Painted Rock can turn into wastelands, then the water crisis is not a problem for the future. It is the present. Tourism is one of Arizona's economic pillars, bringing millions of visitors and billions of dollars each year. It depends not only on the beauty of the land, but on the resources needed to sustain access to that beauty. Hotels, campgrounds, and visitor centers cannot function without water. Trails and parks lose their appeal when streams run dry. Local economies around these sites rely on the steady flow of people, which in turn relies on the steady flow of water. The changes we are seeing now may be only the beginning. Climate models suggest longer droughts, hotter summers, and reduced snowpack in the Rockies, the very conditions that will make such disruptions more common. For communities built around these wonders, the challenge will be to adapt before the losses become permanent. Have you seen a place in Arizona change because of the water crisis? Share your experience in the comments. Saudi thirst. Saudi Arabia is one of the driest countries on earth. It is rich in oil but desperately poor in water. In the early 2010s, the Saudi government banned the domestic cultivation of water-hungry crops like alfalfa to preserve what little groundwater it had left. But stopping production at home did not end the demand. It simply pushed Saudi companies to look abroad for farmland with access to plentiful water. In that search, their eyes fell on Arizona. The best-known example is Fondomonte, Arizona, a subsidiary of Almarai, the largest dairy company in Saudi Arabia. Almarai needs enormous quantities of alfalfa to feed the tens of thousands of cows that supply its milk and dairy products. Growing that feed in Saudi Arabia would deplete aquifers in a matter of years. Growing it in Arizona, however, offered a legal and seemingly endless supply of the one thing they lacked: water. Fondomonte leased thousands of acres of state-owned land in La Paz County. On that land, they planted nothing but alfalfa. This is one of the thirstiest crops in agriculture, requiring vast amounts of water per acre, especially in the intense heat of the Arizona desert. The water used comes from deep underground aquifers that have taken centuries to fill. Once extracted and used for irrigation, that water is effectively gone forever. The scale of pumping was staggering. Local residents began to notice falling water tables in nearby wells. Some small farms and households found their pumps struggling to bring up water. The lush green fields of Fondomonte stood in sharp contrast to the dry surroundings. The knowledge that all that greenery was being shipped overseas made the situation even harder for locals to accept. The story gained national attention. In fact, Fondomonte's operations drew more outrage than the activities of Emirati-owned farms such as those run by Al Dahra. Part of the reason was scale, but part was the symbolism. A foreign company was taking Arizona's most precious resource to produce food for its own country, while the state itself faces a mounting water crisis. News coverage, legislative hearings, and public protests all focused on the La Paz County leases. In 2023, Arizona officials announced they would not renew Fondomonte's lease on some of its state land, citing violations of lease terms and growing public concern. But the company still owns other farmland in the state, and nothing stops similar deals from being made by other foreign operators. The controversy over Fondomonte has become a symbol of Arizona's struggle to balance private land rights, foreign investment, and the urgent need to protect its water. Saudi Arabia acted years ago to safeguard its own resources by banning crops like alfalfa. In 2025, Arizona still allows foreign companies to grow them here and ship the water overseas in the form of feed. The question is whether the state will keep watching its aquifers shrink while others reap the benefits. Do you think Arizona should ban foreign companies from using its water for export crops? Share your opinion in the comments. Desert spy risk. From the outside, it looked like just another clean energy project. A massive wind farm was planned for remote ranch land near a small Texas town. The developer promised jobs, investment, and renewable power. On paper, it was exactly the kind of project that could boost a rural economy. But as federal investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a detail that turned the story into a national security alert. The company behind the project was Hedge America, a subsidiary of Guanghui Energy, owned by Chinese billionaire Sun Guangqin. His name might not mean much to most Americans, but he is a former military officer with strong connections in China's political and business circles. The location of the project was the problem. The proposed wind farm sat just a few dozen miles from Lifeline Air Force Base, one of the busiest training bases for U.S. military pilots. The tall turbines and associated infrastructure raised concerns about surveillance and interference with sensitive operations. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, or CFIS, reviewed the deal and flagged it as a potential risk. Lawmakers in Texas moved quickly, passing a bill to block infrastructure projects by companies linked to countries seen as security threats. The wind farm was stopped before construction began. A similar case unfolded in North Dakota. There, a Chinese company called Fufeng Group bought land to build a corn milling facility. The site was just 12 miles from Grand Forks Air Force Base, home to sensitive drone operations. After months of debate, the project was shut down following warnings from the Air Force about potential espionage. These cases did not happen in Arizona, but they show how land purchases by foreign companies can have implications far beyond agriculture or water. Arizona is home to key military installations like Luke Air Force Base, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and the Yuma Proving Ground. If foreign investors target land near such facilities, the state could face the same national security debates seen in Texas and North Dakota. What makes these stories more unsettling is that many of the purchases started quietly, with little public awareness. Land changes hands through shell companies or subsidiaries, making it hard to track the real owners until the project is already in motion. By the time questions are asked, permits have been filed, and money has been spent. Foreign ownership of land in the United States has traditionally been seen as an economic issue. These recent cases show it can also be a strategic one. The idea that a wind turbine or a corn mill could double as a listening post may sound like fiction, but for military planners, it is a real concern. Now it's time to find out the correct answer to the quiz. What is the earliest known place in Arizona where people lived 5,000 years ago? A. Monument Valley. B. Canyon de Chelly. C. Petrified Forest. D. Montezuma Castle. The correct answer is B. Canyon de Chelly. Canyon de Chelly. Canyon de Chelly is one of the most breathtaking landscapes in Arizona. Towering sandstone cliffs rise above a lush green valley where the history of human life in the Southwest stretches back thousands of years. The canyon lies entirely within the Navajo Nation, and it remains not just a natural wonder, but a living place where people still farm, herd sheep, and pass on traditions. Archaeologists believe humans have lived in Canyon de Chelly for nearly 5,000 years. Ancient peoples built cliff dwellings high in the canyon walls, some of which still stand today. The most famous is the White House Ruin, a multi-story structure tucked under a massive rock overhang. These ruins are silent witnesses to centuries of adaptation to the harsh desert environment, where survival depended on knowing every nuance of the land and water. The Navajo people, or Diné, have called the canyon home for generations. They still tend small fields in the valley floor, using irrigation channels fed by seasonal streams. The relationship between the community and the land is deeply rooted in respect and stewardship. Access to the canyon is limited, and many areas are only open to visitors who are accompanied by Navajo guides. This protects both the fragile environment and the cultural heritage of the place. Walking through Canyon de Chelly, you can see layers of history in the rock walls. Petroglyphs carved centuries ago sit alongside modern grazing corrals. Seasonal floods still nourish the fields, just as they did for the ancient farmers who first settled here. It is a reminder that in the desert, life has always been tied to the availability of water and the care taken to preserve it. In recent years, however, the canyon has begun to feel the effects of Arizona's growing water crisis. Reduced snowpack in the mountains, longer droughts, and declining aquifers have all taken a toll on the seasonal streams and springs that feed life here. Farmers have had to scale back planting, Some traditional crops no longer produce the yields they once did. Native plants that help hold the soil in place struggle to survive in drier conditions. With less vegetation, erosion increases, and the stability of the canyon floor can be compromised. Standing at the edge of the canyon, it is impossible not to feel the weight of time. Empires have risen and fallen, borders have shifted, and economies have changed, yet the canyon remains. But even a place as enduring as Canyon de Chelly is not immune to the forces that shape the rest of Arizona. Without careful management of its water, the fields could turn to dust, and the ancient balance between people and land could be lost. Thank you for exploring the hidden corners of Arizona with us. Click on the video you see on the screen to check out other hidden discoveries on our channel.